So this is a movie I saw months ago, and I really wish I wrote the review back then. Because there's a lot of stuff going on in this, and I'm sure I've forgotten a ton at this point. However, it is a movie that definitely stuck with me, and I've been thinking about it from time to time. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's a pretty unconventional film. Especially as far as the narrative goes, this story is not exactly told in the way most movies would tell it. To the point that I actually struggled a bit to grasp onto what exactly it was trying to say. Now, I do think I have a pretty good idea of what it was trying to get at, but I'm not actually sure. It could have been doing something else entirely, to be honest. Which, I mean, I guess I should have expected, this being a Charlie Kaufman movie. And if you're not familiar with his work, he's mostly known as a writer, but he's also directed a few movies. One of my favorites being Synecdoche, New York, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. I also really liked being John Malkovich and Adaptation. I think those were pretty great too. And Anomalisa, while far from a favorite of mine, did do something pretty unique. It also really got under my skin and actually dug into some pretty deep-rooted fears in me. Oh, and then there's of course Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind too. Which I actually didn't much care for, but a lot of people love it, so I guess it's worth a mention. But needless to say, this guy knows how to write. He's super creative and an out-of-the-box thinker, and usually figures out a way to come at you from out of the left field. And this movie is no exception. It starts off pretty tame, it kinda lulls you into a false sense of security, because it starts with this couple in a car, just driving, and it's a scene that goes on for a long time. But what it does is, it introduces us to the characters and to their relationship. And you get a pretty good sense of who they are, and I loved that part of the movie. And a lot of that has to do with the writing, but a lot of it also has to do with the two main performances. Because Jessie Buckley and Jesse Plemons are phenomenal. They pretty much knocked it out of the park with this one. But yeah, soon enough the movie takes a left turn and goes off the rails in ways I highly doubt anyone could see coming. I mean, it dips into legit horror territory there for a while, and it does it brilliantly. The sense of unease is palpable, and yeah, I was impressed. Very confused at that point, but impressed. And then the movie tricks you into thinking it might be back on track before completely going off the rails again. But this time in a very different way. Again, in a very unexpected way that pretty much no one could predict. So yeah, it's a doozy of a movie in many ways, but what is it actually about? Well, I guess that brings me to the title itself, which made me think about someone contemplating suicide. And I've talked to other people who thought the same exact thing, which makes me think it's probably intentional. However, that is definitely not what the movie is about, and I don't think this can be considered a spoiler, but the movie is actually about a relationship, and about someone considering ending said relationship. And it's about the doubts and anxieties relating to the relationship itself and the potential breakup. But as I said, the way it goes about telling this story is pretty unconventional, to say the least. And I gotta admit, I didn't love it, and it did kinda lose me there with that last part. I wasn't a huge fan of that. But at the same time, the more I've let this just sit there and marinate in my mind, the more I like it. Because right after watching it, I was just so confused and bewildered that I couldn't really appreciate it, but the more I've thought about it, and the more I've kind of figured out what it was all about, the more I've started to appreciate it. And at this point I'm kinda glad I didn't write this review immediately, because it would have been a lot more negative. However, at this point I have to say that it's not my favorite Charlie Kaufman movie. And as a result, I'm thinking this one probably deserves a solid 7. Boop. But it is still a good movie, and one definitely worth checking out if you don't mind slightly more unconventional storytelling. So maybe do that, or maybe don't. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic.